For those of you who don't know, but I also feature sarcastic commentary on my Patreon, which isn't posted anywhere else. I thought that it would be fun to highlight the top snark from every single day as an incentive to get people to join. I started the month off with Cursed by Phoebe Lane before jumping into the fourth and final book of the trilogy of... Wait a second, fourth book in a trilogy? Yeah, it's one of those dumb things where it's a series, but it's from the male lead's point of view. Ugh. I finished up the Breach trilogy, and I'm pleased to report that I didn't end the month with one chapter of something new. It was 4 days this month, and that was The Sound of Silence. After Evan's dinner party, Ashlyn had admitted to herself that she wasn't only attracted to Jace physically, but also very attracted to him as a person. Okay, do you see this right here? This is that telling. In the previous chapter, we saw Jace having naughty fantasies about Ashlyn, which was showing. She had just started to doze off on the sofa when Ellie woke her up, upset because Ashlyn had been looking at apartments in other cities. Seems Ashlyn's commitment issues are rearing their head, and the thought of being in another relationship after Christopher is sending her running to another city. So you're going to forget about Christopher now for some guy you don't even know? What the fork is she supposed to do? Forever moon after a guy who literally left her? She complains about Ashlyn running away from everything, but she also complains about Ashlyn trying to move on. Pick a lane. He also thought about Ashlyn, her cold demeanor as she quickly left the party without calling any attention to herself, without saying goodbye, without giving me an explanation. I knew she'd run away, he had thought at the time. You don't get to be emotionally distant towards people and then be surprised when they treat you the same way. Ellie was off in another city working on a job, and Jace's business trip had been extended, and Ashlyn sits at home feeling isolated and sorry for herself with no support system. Well, if it isn't the consequences of your actions. How the heck does a trained psychologist not look at a childhood full of overly critical comments and say, that's not abuse? Ashlyn admitted that she still struggles with her own inner voice being her mother's instead of her own. If a child had come to her while her practice had still been running and told Ashlyn that her mom had said all of those negative things to and about her, Ashlyn would be having a mandatory sit-down with the mother. Yes, Mommy Dearest isn't beating or starving the child, but it's gross how this book says that Ashlyn is a psychologist and doesn't understand things like emotional abuse. Here, have a kiwi. Arg, arg, arg. Free would have a field day psychoanalyzing the fact that Ashlyn was deathly allergic to kiwi. A field day? Sweetie, it's not that deep. The narration has spent the past 7 pages showing us how forking shirty Pam is. She legit doesn't give a fork about anything outside of her own self-interest. Too bad that it never extended to actually caring about her own daughter. The problem is I feel like Ashlyn got all the answers she needed when Pam refused to answer the question as to why she hates her own child so much. Granted, it's more of a subtle answer than anything, but still, Ashlyn doesn't need to talk to her mother anymore. She shouldn't have agreed to see Pam at all, and she should change her number and get a new email address. At some point, cutting a woman who never has anything nice to say about you out from your life is self-care. What, did he get cold feet, cheat on you, did he fall in love with someone else? No, it's not like that, Jace. I don't want to hurt you, please, Ashlyn cried. Tell me. He died, she said and sobbed. And there it is. Quite frankly, this makes the entire Pam situation even shirtier. Like, people legit think that she should just get over her fiancé dropping dead in less than a year. Is this about you, or is this about Christopher? What? Ashlyn asked, confused. I don't care to compete with the memory of a dead man, Ashlyn. I need to know that this isn't about you still being in love with him. Girl literally told you a few days ago she's been having vivid hallucinations of her dead fiancé. Obviously, she's not over him and she's not in a good place mentally. Exactly what part of that is confusing to him? The author acts like she doesn't care about any of it, which makes it hard for the reader to care too. I wanted her. The beast wanted her. We aren't doing this thing where we give names to the different parts of the self. Stop it. Get some help. Stop. We can't take it. The problem was I couldn't stop. My fingers were on the latch. Don't look. We can't. The role of Nathan Thorne will be played by Gollum. As always, it's great that you can admit that you have a problem, but my issue lies with the idea that if you can identify that you have a problem but you do nothing about any of this, then you might as well have not had the realization in the first place. The author legit sat down and thought that the thing readers wanted to see was the first time Nate and Delilah were together, but from his perspective and heavily sprinkled with his schizophrenic Gollum ramblings. And Nate feels guilty because he'd been so consumed with thoughts of this other woman that he didn't even know that he literally forgot to be sad. Which, it's good that you can finally distract yourself from the pain, but it's bad that those thoughts are about a meaningless hookup with a woman you barely know. I was wondering, if you're free, I'm having a party at my house this weekend. Consider this your invite. A party in a 19-year-old's house? Yeah, right. I wasn't going near that. I'd likely be arrested for aiding in the consumption of alcohol by underage teenagers. Nate might be a shirthole, but at least he's not a going to a teenage party when I'm in my 30s kind of shirthole. This book literally has one note, and it was stale as soon as the subject was first brought up. Now that we're getting into the actual plot, I want to yeet the book directly into the sun for subjecting all of us to this. I'm barely reading as it is because the narration is getting beyond tedious. It's nothing but Nate being jealous and beyond creepy about Delilah. It's of them making the beast with two backs. Rinse, repeat. There's literally nothing to say that I haven't already said. If you were expecting something other than Nate having schizophrenic episodes in which he wrestles with his desire for Delilah and his urge not to get too attached to anybody while they make the beast with two backs, you're clearly reading the wrong book. Hated the fact that I hated some inconsequential guy all because he knew the woman that I was making the beast with two backs with in more intimate ways than I ever could. He complains about this while simultaneously pushing Delilah away because of lingering guilt over Grace's death. After our confessions and admissions, things changed. What's this about our confessions? Because Delilah told him about the systematic abuse she suffered. He told her something bad related to my job as a prosecutor happened to me, as if that somehow encompasses the mafia unalived my wife and unborn child and tried to do me too. JFC, literally nothing in the first book is improved by hearing about it from Nate's point of view. Literally not one single gosh darn thing. I'm still sickened that every single teacher and doctor in the town where Delilah grew up was arrested and charged with knowingly not reporting obvious child abuse. I've said it before and I'll keep saying it until the entire forking world understands. I'm sorry that the terrible thing happened to you, but that doesn't give you the right to turn around and abuse others. I still don't know how the fork Darren can look at the sorry state Lila's in and say, obviously I can fix this. Like, at some point you have to say, fork it, get the fork out, I have to fix the mess you left without you. Like, yes, Lila and Nate did have their happy ending, but I'm still of the opinion that the relationship was so messed up that not one single person should have tried to patch that up. Why would you need to protect me from the Marconis? You want to know what would have been funnier? If she asked, who the fork are the Marconis? Because I kind of feel like people who aren't in the criminal justice system would have no idea who the members of the mafia are. My mascot had been a goat dressed as a tiger since they couldn't have a real tiger on campus. I was a wildcat in high school. We didn't have a forking bobcat on campus, but that didn't stop the person from putting on a freaking mascot costume and jumping around in pep rallies and football games. After the dog attacked me, I was in the hospital in Austin for 3 weeks. I had 2 surgeries and they still couldn't fix me. The medical bills were so high. My dad sold everything of value he had to try and pay off the bills, but it wasn't enough and he's still paying them off even now. Then when my mom left, he had to pay for the court process for the divorce. She took all she had, leaving us nothing. That's not even some fair weather mother like I had originally thought. That's something completely and utterly different. This is a woman with a vendetta who is determined to make Dad's life as forking miserable as possible. I don't even have a word for this. What the fork? Can you join us out here, Alex? You can't sit in there all day. You will need to return to your classes. I kind of agree. Like, I'm sorry that other people are being shirty towards you, but you can't go running off to cry in the bathroom whenever somebody is mean towards you. That's not how adults should deal with any situation. Teens were swarming to get into the cars, not wanting to spend another second longer on college grounds than they needed to. The author made literally not even a half-butt attempt to change it to be college. It's more like a 1/16 of an attempt. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, and you can read the entire Snark in full context on my Patreon for $1 a month. Come back next month for more out-of-context comments.